Greetings everyone, you are welcome here. In this video, we will talk about some tips and tricks to learn primary key and not null constraints. What are constraints? Constraints are the rules which ensure the validity of data which is being entered into the table. That is, the data which we are entering into the table is validated using the constraints. In this video, we will talk about primary key constraint and not null constraint. Now, what is a primary key constraint? The purpose of this constraint is to set a column or a group of columns as the primary key of a table. So, when this constraint is set, nulls and duplicate values will not be accepted in that column. Not null constraint. This constraint makes sure that nulls are not accepted in the specified column. That is, we cannot leave that column as null. All the rows of that column must have some value. Now let us talk in detail how to add primary key constraint. This constraint can be added at the time of creating a table using create table command. Suppose the question is create a table item having fields item number, name, price and quantity with item number as the primary key. So the command for this question is or query is create table item number of type integer and then we will write primary key. So this column will be taken as the primary key of the table. Then as usual we will give the names of other fields. Name char 20, comma price, decimal 5, comma 2, comma quantity integer. Another way of writing the same command is create table item number integer, comma, name char 20, price float 5, comma 2, quantity integer and then at the end we can specify item number as the primary key. So both the commands are same, they give the same output. So when after creating the table, so when we see the structure of the table using describe table name, we'll get the output will be like this, and in this output you can see against item number we can see the key is mentioned as primary and null has been given no. It means you cannot take null values in this column as it has now become a primary key of the table item. So null values are not allowed in this column and in rest of the column null values are allowed. We can also create a composite primary key. Let us see how. If the question is create a table item having fields item number, name, price and quantity with item number and name together as the primary key. So create a composite primary key with columns item number and name. We will give a command like this. Create table item 1. We are calling this table name as item 1. Item number integer. Name char 20. Price float 5, comma 2. Quantity integer. And then we will specify primary key and within the parenthesis we will give the name of the columns as item number and name. They will be separated by comma. So please check that you cannot give the primary key keyword here along with the column names because this is a composite primary key. So it has to be given like this. At the end you have to write like this primary key and then within parenthesis give the names of the column which are going to make a primary key. So when we will see the structure of this table, you can see against the field item number and name, key is taken as primary and null values is not allowed in both of these columns. And then price and quantity can have null values. And it is important to note that alter command can also be used to add primary key constraint if the table is already created and we forgot to add this constraint at the time of creating a table. So if you forgot to add this constraint at the time of creating a table, you can use alter table command to add this constraint later. Not null constraint. Null constraint, when added to a column, does not allow that particular column to accept null values. So when we say not null, we cannot give null values to that particular column. So suppose the question is, create a table item 2 having fields item number, name, price, quantity with item number as the primary key, and price should be not null. So to create this table, the command will be create table item 2, item number of type integer, and then primary key, name char 20, price decimal 5,2, and it has to be not null. So we will write not null after this, and then quantity integer. So when we see the structure of this table, it will look like this. You can see item number field. Against this, it is written PRI, which indicates that this is a primary key. And again, being a primary key, you cannot have null values in this column. Also, you can see in the column price, for the field price, again, null values are not allowed. It is written no. It means null values are not allowed because we have given not null constraint for this column price. Suppose we want to view the constraints which we have given to the various fields of our table. So the command is describe command. It is used to view the entire structure of the table along with the constraints associated with its column. So if the question is write a command, this is a short form of it, to display the structure of the table item 2 along with its constraint, the query would be describe item 2. So when we give this command, it will display the entire structure of the table, and you can see the item number as the primary key constraint and price as the not null constraint. So you can view all the data types and all the constraints which we have applied to various columns of our table. Now let us see how we can add and remove primary key constraint. Alter table command is used to add and delete primary key constraint. So let us see how. If the question is write a command to add constraint primary key to the column item number of the table item, the query would be alter table item add primary key and within the parenthesis the name of the column, which in this case is item number. So we have to use alter table, and along with this we use add keyword. Now let us suppose the command is to make item number and name together as the composite primary key of the table item. So we'll give the command as alter table item add primary key, and within the parenthesis we will write down item number comma name. So these two columns will make the composite primary key of the table item. Now the next question is to delete the primary key constraint from the table item. Suppose we have already given the primary key constraint, but now we do not want that column to have the primary key constraint. So we can delete that constraint using the query alter table item drop primary key. You do not need to mention the name of the column. You just have to use alter table and the drop keyword, and then you have to give primary key. So it will drop the correct primary key from the table item. Let us see how we can add and remove not null constraint. The not null constraint can be added and removed by using modify option of the alter table command. So suppose the question is write a command to add a not null constraint to price a column of the table item. So we can give this constraint by using the query alter table item modify price, then we give the data type decimal 5,2 and then not null. So this will add the not null constraint to the column price of the table item. So we have to use alter table and then modify. Now the next question is write a command to remove a not null constraint from the price column of the table item. So to remove this constraint, we'll give the command alter table item modify price decimal 5,2 and null. So if we write null here, it will remove the not null constraint. If we write not null here, it will add the not null constraint. So please be careful while writing this command. Let us now discuss few important questions based on primary key and the not null constraints. So the first question is, Anita has created the following table with the name order, and the column names or attributes are order ID as the primary key, order date with not null constraint, order amount and store ID. Now she wants to delete the primary key and wants to make order ID and order date as the composite primary key. To give the commands to do so. Now delete the primary key, the command is alter table order drop primary key. And to add the order ID and order date as the composite primary key, the command is alter table order add primary key within parenthesis order ID comma order date. So you'll get one full mark for both the queries if you write them correctly. Now the next question is, Anita has created the following table with the name order, again with the attributes order ID as the primary key, order date as not null, order amount and store ID. Now she wants to delete the not null constraint from the column order date and wants to add not null constraint to the column order amount. We have to give the commands to do so. So to delete the not null constraint, the command is alter table order modify order date of type date and null. When we write null, it will remove the not null constraint from the column order date. Now order date alter table order modify order amount decimal 5,2 not null. Now this command will add not null constraint to the column order amount. Now the next question is, Ravi has created a table item. He wants to view the entire structure of the table along with the constraints associated with its column. So what is the command to do so? The command is describe item. So when we give this command, it will display all the attributes along with their type and the constraints. Now the next question is, there is a table trial with combination of columns T1, T2, T3 as its primary key. Is it possible to enter null or duplicate values in any of these columns? So the answer is, it is not possible to enter null values in any of these columns. All the columns which are defined as the primary key must be declared not null. And if we do not declare them not null, MySQL will do this job silently. And about the duplicate values, these columns can have duplicate values, but together these columns must have unique value for every row of the table. Now the fourth question is, Ravi has created a table item. Name the columns with constraints and the constraints applied on them. So we look at the structure of the table. There are two constraints. You can see PRI here, which indicates that item number is the primary key. Then you can see no against price column, which indicates that null values are not allowed in this column. So it means price has not null constraint. Now the next question is, Rajat wants to create a combination of columns, salesperson ID and name as the primary key. And he gave the following statement. Create table sales, salesperson ID, int 4, primary key, comma, name, char 10, primary key, comma, age integer, comma, salary, 7, 2. But he got an error. What can be the error and what is the correct statement? So the error can be, he will get an error, multiple primary key defined. He will get this error because MySQL will interpret this statement as if we are trying to create two primary keys of the table as salesperson ID and name. It will think that we are trying to create two columns as the primary key. But in a table, we can have only one primary key. So to set a combination of columns, salesperson ID and name as the primary key, the command is create table sales, salesperson ID int 4, comma, name char 10, age integer, salary 7, 2, and then primary key, and within the parenthesis we give the column names as salesperson ID, comma, name. So this is the correct way of declaring a composite primary key. Now let us discuss few board questions. Now this question it is given in sample paper 2018. Mrs. Shalini has just created a table named employee containing columns e-name, department and salary. After creating the table, she realized that she has forgotten to add a primary key column in the table. Help her in writing SQL command to add a primary key column MID. Also state the importance of primary key in a table. So to add a primary key constraint, the command is alter table and the table name, which is employee, add MID int. MID is of type int, and then we give primary key. So one full mark will be given if correct SQL command is written to add a primary key. Now importance of primary key, you already know that it is used to uniquely identify each record of the table, and a column defined as primary key cannot have a duplicate entry and it cannot be left blank. So we'll get one full mark if you write the correct importance of primary key. The second question which came in the Delhi board paper 2016 is, Anita has created the following table with the name order, again with the column names, order ID as primary key, order date as not null, order amount and store ID. One of the rows inserted is as follows. Order ID 0101, this is the order date, order amount as 34,000 and store ID is as S104. Anita is now trying to insert the following row with order ID as 0102, then order date as null and 59,000 order amount and store ID as S105. Will she be able to successfully insert it? Give reason. So the answer is no, she will not be able to successfully insert it, and the reason is that the not null constraint has been applied on the attribute order date. You can see order date has not null constraint, so we cannot assign null value to the column order date. You'll get a half mark for mentioning no and half mark for mentioning the correct reason. This question was of 1 mark. Another important board question which came in Delhi paper 2016 is write SQL query to create a table event with the following structure. It is of 2 marks. Event ID, varchar 5 primary key, event name varchar 30 not null, then location, client ID and event date. The command is create table event and then event ID with varchar 5 primary key, event name varchar 30 not null. These are the constraints. And then location varchar 550, client ID as integer and event date as date. The mark distribution for this command is half mark for create table. If you write the create table correctly, you will get half mark. Half mark for column names with data types. If you write all the column names with their data types, you get half mark. Half mark for primary key constraint if you write it correctly, and half mark for not null constraint. So you have to write the command like this. So this is all for this video. If you like this video, kindly give thumbs up and please subscribe to my YouTube channel. My channel is Learning Simplified. Thank you.